I'm just facilitating the session. This is all Dustin Hampton from the GOE team at Fulton Engineering has developed this process for our faculty because many of them are used to using the .cam within the classroom and so wanted a similar type setup at home. Dustin, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
I think you did a pretty good job, but yeah, I'm Dustin Hampton. I manage a couple green screen studios at the Tempe campus and work with a lot of faculty in creating what we call design for online courses. So those are courses where from the very beginning of development, we've been thinking about what is the best way to actually do those online. So some faculty have worked with us to do like lecture capture, where they kind of do the regular thing in the classroom and then it's just captured. And that's kind of how some of our online started, but we're really trying to put our best foot forward now and do everything really thinking about what's the best way to do it online. So hopefully I'll have some good stuff to share with you today.
And Dustin, I don't know, I made you a co-host. I don't know if you want to take control so you can run the slides.
Actually, I might have my hands full doing some stuff. So, and there's not too many slides, so
okay.
I can just tell you when we need to advance.
Tell me when, and then it's all you, my friend.
All right, so we can go ahead and move on. I thought that it may not be obvious to everyone. There are some IT managers do have a handful of .cams that they can provide for faculty. This is one I actually grabbed this morning. I had to run into campus real quick for a thing. I grabbed one. This is from SIDSI, our computer science group within engineering, and they have about like 4 or 5 of these. So if you're really wanting to get the real traditional .cam type of setup, reach out to your direct IT manager or IT team and see if they have one that they can give you. I know there's a lot of .cams in classrooms that aren't being used right now. So I'm just going to cover kind of some of the pros and cons of each of our different styles here. With these types of .cams, they have built-in lights. So the image is going to be really clear. It is going to be probably one of the best image quality things that you can add to like your Zoom session. Everything that I'm going to talk about today is really designed around doing something live in a Zoom session. And so some of the cons might be that they're a little bulky. They may need like some very specific drivers or software installed in order for them to actually work with your computer. You're probably going to have to go into campus to pick one up. These types of .cams are typically kind of expensive, so you're probably not going to buy one of these on your own. And then they don't have a microphone on them. If you're doing this off of like a laptop, you could probably use that, or like a little headset mic or whatever, but just something to keep in mind. So this is a setup that I had made a couple of years ago for a faculty member who traveled a lot and does a lot of math type stuff in their class. They came to me and said, I want a portable .cam. I looked around at a couple different things and I found this kind of little webcam stand on Amazon. They're relatively cheap. I'll show you an image of what it looks like on Amazon. And I just checked this morning. They are available. If you ordered one today, you could have it in a couple days. So they're really cheap. They're available. They're really small and light if you do need to travel with them. So, you could use them later if you did purchase them now. A lot of the mindset that we have right now is maybe not purchasing stuff that we couldn't use later and trying to repurpose things that we already have. And then there is a microphone attached. So, if you're going to be very close to that, the closer you can get to the microphone, the better the audio is going to be. So that's something that's kind of a plus with this setup. Now, the downsides is that there's no attached light. So you're going to need to make sure that wherever you're at, there's enough light so that like even your hand being on a piece of paper writing isn't going to cast enough of a shadow where they're not going to be able to see stuff. And then you can see here, I've just kind of draped my webcam on top of it. These do have like a standard tripod screw at the bottom. And there's some webcams that have that kind of screw attachment mount at the bottom and some don't. I mean, it'd be easy enough to just put a little bit of a tape around it. But if that's something that you're tearing down and putting back up a lot, taping it may become cumbersome. One of the other limitations is that you can't zoom in or out. You'll see that there's kind of like a tripod leg to where it looks like the top part of that extends. Well, I can tell you from experience that if you're trying to get a sheet of paper in there, which when you're using this, unless you have something that's pre-printed, you're gonna wanna have that piece of paper underneath in a landscape, so the wider setting, because that's what the resolution of the camera is gonna run. It's gonna run like that 16:9 kind of widescreen look. And so that will allow you to utilize more of kind of the screen real estate and what the camera can go. So some of the other downsides is since you can't control the zoom, the legs itself might end up in the shot. And then if you'll notice the way the webcam is oriented, if we did have a sheet of paper under it, the image would be upside down. Now, Zoom does give you the ability to rotate your camera. So you do have to go into the camera settings and do that, but it does work. And Zoom also has the ability for you to add a second camera into your Zoom, like if you're the host. So it is really easy to actually, if you click on share screen, there's an advanced tab, and under the advanced tab, it says content from a second camera. So here's a couple different products. I mean, I just did a quick search for desktop webcam stand and then the word document. And so you'll see there at the bottom of the three, that's the exact one that I purchased. It's $22. Kind of something along those lines is the flexible mounts, or the other one that's on kind of the arm there. Either of those would also kind of accomplish the same thing, which is really just pointing a webcam down at your desk. If you want to go ahead and move on to the next slide now, I'm going to show you a real creative way that you can do the same thing with stuff at home. So I'm sure everybody has an Amazon box, sitting at home. Maybe you haven't recycled it yet. And so I literally just took a ruler and threw a book on it to hold it. Again, I would probably tape that webcam down, and you are going to have to rotate that image in software. If you have an external webcam, you can turn it into a dot cam. I think that little tripod thing, with as cheap as it is, I don't think anybody's going to have a problem spending $20 to get that little tripod thing. You get into a situation where you need to do something, get creative, prop it up. I wanted to share with you also something that we tried and we found out that doesn't work. Now, I don't want to say that this will never work. It just doesn't really work for us right now. This is like a little cardboard thing you can buy. It's another thing that you can find like on Amazon, or you could make one yourself. Webcams are really hard to get a hold of right now. So we started thinking about what can we do to help provide like webcams and stuff, especially for students that may not have a webcam. Could we use a phone as a webcam? And what we thought would be easy is just installing the Zoom app on like your phone, and then doing something like this where you're pointing your phone at a piece of paper. And what we found is that Zoom actually limits the resolution of the app from like the Android and iOS apps. So the resolution ends up being so low that unless you're writing with like a really, really thick marker, like they're just not going to be able to see what you're writing very well. That could be a software update. I'm assuming they do that because they're assuming that if you're on your phone, you're probably on like your cell phone connection and not on Wi-Fi. I did not test that with other software right now, since Zoom is what ASU is using, and that may not be the case for other apps. So if you like to use Google Hangouts instead, I have not tried it with Microsoft Teams yet, but for a Zoom solution, I don't think this works well. So the big thing is if you don't have an external camera, you don't have like a dot cam or whatever, what is really an alternative to doing that? And that comes down to touchscreen devices. I actually have all three of these devices on my desk right now, and I can show you 2 different ways to use them. You're gonna wanna use a pen. Your finger is probably not gonna give you enough accuracy to do, in engineering, we do a lot of math. And a lot of times they want to show as much as possible on the screen at once. Being able to write in a precise manner, I feel, is important. And styluses are not that hard to come by these days. I'm sure everyone has heard the pen is mightier than the sword. And so I have a bunch of little images of swords over here, and swords come in all different shapes and sizes and different purposes. And that's very similar to styluses these days. So I consider styluses to be into one of 2 categories. One is universal and the other is proprietary. And what that really means is if it's universal, is it's going to work with any touchscreen device, but you're not going to get any additional benefits other than it's just going to know more precisely where you're trying to do something on the screen or interact with the screen. And the proprietary devices, they're going to have some type of integration with the hardware. Most of the times they're going to be pressure sensitive. I did want to mention that we tested a bunch of styluses a couple years back, and I found this one, it's a little weird in that it has this little disc. That's the image that's in the bottom right-hand corner. I just looked up that model, and it looks like they have like a newer version of it, but it still has that same kind of tip on it. But that little clear disc allows you to actually see through that to where you're actually touching on the screen. And as far as a universal stylus is concerned, it's about as accurate as you can get. So we purchased several of these to put in some classrooms that have generic touchscreen monitors so that faculty can annotate on top of their PowerPoint. As far as the two styluses that are proprietary on the screen here, the one on the right, the white one, is an Apple Pencil, and the one on the left is a Microsoft Surface. Those will only work with their corresponding devices. The Pencil, I believe, works on any iPad. I don't know about some older models, but any of the current models it does. And one of the other things that I wanted to mention about those two specifically is the back of the Apple Pencil. The Apple Pencil actually is battery powered, and so you have to plug it in. There's a lightning connector on the back. And when you plug that in, or you can actually just plug it into the iPad, it charges, I think, relatively quick. But I don't believe the Microsoft one requires any power. And in my testing, and maybe if there's an Apple person on here, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as thinking about the writing experience of what it would be to actually put pen on paper, I think the Microsoft Surface gets it about as close as you can to the real thing, because the backside here does work as an eraser. So as you draw, you make a mistake, you flip it over and you can erase. I was unable to get that functionality out of the pencil when I was annotating inside a PowerPoint.
Dustin, real quick, if someone has an HP Envy laptop that they can fold into a tablet configuration, any specific recommendations you would give them?
I would have to double check that specific hardware and see if they made a specific stylus for that hardware. But otherwise, you would just use one of these universal styluses. So if that's the case, I would look at that add-on it. I think their newest version is called like the Pro 3, something like that. But if you just do like an Amazon search for add-on it, you should be able to find that stylus. And like I mentioned, that's about the best one that's universal that we found. That basically is kind of the end of my presentation. However, I wanted to make sure that we had enough time left that I can actually give you a live demo. So one of the things that I wanted to mention about all of these kind of devices is that, Zoom, and I don't know if you're aware or not, but Zoom actually has a whiteboard built in. I've heard and seen that as you're drawing, it's not that smooth. Like it sometimes can be a little, it's not as straightforward to follow through as if it was like a camera, with somebody writing on paper. What a lot of people are doing is they are sharing their screen of the device. So they're logging in to the same Zoom session kind of twice. So like right now I'm on my main computer at home with my webcam. I have my devices here separate. So I would log into the same Zoom session as a guest on my device and then share the screen of my device and then use something like a PowerPoint app, or there's a bunch of PDF annotating apps out there, and then you would use like a third-party app or PowerPoint. So you're sharing the screen. You can now save your whiteboard stuff from Zoom, but previously it was just a temporary kind of scratch space. And so some people might want to actually save those annotations, put them in their Canvas shells or whatever. If you use like the PowerPoint app on your device, you can always save that and then put that in your course afterwards. So not only is it smoother while they're following along in your live session, but it's a little easier to save. And I think most people are probably going to have some PowerPoints that already exist. You can use Google Drive, Dropbox, a lot of different apps to actually get those same PowerPoints on your device and then just start using them. So I have an Android tablet, I have my iPad, and I have a Microsoft Surface here. And I can give you guys a real quick demo of kind of what that would look like. But I wanted to leave that up to the group here to decide like which of those devices that you actually want to see. I do know that UTO went out and purchased a lot of Microsoft Surfaces. So they have them available as like a checkout device that you could get right now. And like I mentioned before, I think it has probably one of the best writing experiences. So I do know that they're a little short on the Surface pens. So there's a chance that if you wait too long, you might not be able to get the actual Microsoft pen, and then you'd end up using a universal stylus. But yeah, so I'm leaving it up to the group. What do you guys want to see a demo? And if you do, what device would you like to see?
I vote for the Microsoft.
All right, so I'm gonna join with the Surface here really quick, and then I saw there was somebody else wanted to see an iPad. So we'll do the Surface first, and then if you guys have time to stick around, I can do the iPad as well afterwards. So I'm gonna open Zoom, and I'm not going to sign in because if I were to sign in, it would kick me out of the current session. So I'm just gonna say join a meeting. And then let me see what this meeting ID was. And I'm gonna say join without video because you're already getting me on my main computer.
This meeting is being recorded.
And I need to mute that device. All right, so now I'm just gonna say share my screen. And for now, I'm just gonna share the entire screen. So I'm just gonna open up a blank presentation. But the nice thing about the Surface, as far as like a writing tablet, is it has that kickstand and you can open it up really wide. So you could set it kind of at a little bit of an angle. And one of the other things I forgot to mention about the proprietary devices is when you put your hand on it, it knows that the pen is close. And so it will ignore any touch that it receives from your hand. But I'm just gonna type hello there, or write, I shouldn't say type, write. And then I'm gonna flip it around and I can quickly erase if I made a mistake. You can see there's a little bit of a delay probably, but like that I believe is a little bit smoother than doing the whiteboard feature within Zoom itself. So, and then if I wanted to actually save that, let me plug my keyboard back in here. So it's always going to ask you once you leave if you want to keep your ink annotations, and I would just say yes. So let me stop sharing.
As Dustin's setting up, we did have another faculty member do a lightning lunch about using different apps such as SlideShare. She felt that the annotation, the lag was less using that on a separate device. So she would log in on 2 different devices in Zoom, one herself and one being the tablet, and she would share from the tablet.
Hey, Dustin, maybe we could respond to Candace's specific question in the chat as well.
Let me take a look. So there we go. I had to click on Zoom. So I'll actually pull up some old one here. So when I just put it into presentation mode, take my pencil here, and I can draw. Okay, let me see what that question was. So Candace, I'm assuming that you're referring to the using a phone as kind of the document camera?
Yeah,
And
so you had that picture of the phone on the cardboard thing, and you said it's not recommended to use the phone to record as a doc cam, basically, because the mobile app of Zoom gives you such a low resolution.
correct.
But the setup looked really interesting, and my computer can be folded to the configuration, so it's similar to a tablet. And so I'm assuming that means that I could just use it without having to worry about the mobile form of Zoom because I'm using normal Zoom.
Yes, yes. So you can. I'm a little disappointed with their like camera options. It's literally just enable high def or no. I mean, ideally, you would have a like an external webcam that you would plug in to use as the dot cam. But because I mean, yeah, it would be a little big, but you know, you could take like your Amazon box, and you know, I know that on my. Let me stop sharing my screen. And then same question. Do I want to keep annotations or no? I'll say keep. And there we go. So yeah, so like on the iPad, right? Like the camera's off to the side. So the question then becomes though is how do you get that over far enough that it's centered under your piece of paper or centered above your piece of paper? And you know, I'm sure you could figure out a way to do that, but to do a whole computer above, I mean, you'll have to get creative. I'm not saying it's impossible. It could be done, but in a pinch.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. If you want to reach out to me directly, like you have a unique situation and you kind of want me to, you know, give you some advice, I'd be more than happy to help you kind of figure out a setup that works for you, you know, in your home.
We do have contact info for both the college and also Fulton schools. So if anyone needs, and we can channel things to Dustin that way, or you can obviously find him on the ASU directory. But these are some resources available to you if you have any further questions or want to follow up more. So if there are no other questions, we'll let you all get about your day, but feel free to continue sharing. It looks like maybe there's something in the chat. Good.
Just some thank yous.
All right.
Thanks, Dustin.
All right. Have a good day, everybody, and a good weekend.